What up, friends? I need one of those, and today we're going to be reviewing Big Time Rush's newest album, Another Life. This is the fourth studio album by former Nickelodeon boy band Big Time Rush. Admittedly, for the whole Big Time Rush thing, you kinda had to be there, as corny as it sounds. A lot of Big Time Rush's appeal is kind of rooted in the nostalgia of watching the TV show, and their first three records were basically built with the TV show in mind. I watched it very often as a tween, and I still kinda bopped to the songs because of that. After the show ended, the boys kinda went their separate ways for a little while as the brand entered some tumultuous copyright moments. However, after a full decade, the group finally has the rights to their brand back, to their catalog back, and they kind of released this album as a celebration of sorts. To be honest, this album is better than it has any right to be from a former Nickelodeon boy band. Rather than trying to recapture the nostalgia of their previous work, the band seems to have kind of grown with the fans, opting for a more contemporary pop sound that I think fits right at home with the modern pop landscape. Up first, we get Can't Get Enough, and what an intro. This track is just pure pop-funk bliss. The vocals are classic Big Time Rush, but more refined, and I'm also really digging the guitar and bass riffs that accentuate the beat here. The background vocals add some nice texture, and I'm really liking how the pre-chorus and the chorus almost feel like they lead up to the verses instead of vice versa, which is a pretty interesting shakeup in terms of structure. The beat is punchy and fun, and the song is just catchy as hell. It manages to feel modern and trendy while also sounding layered. They get the best of both worlds here. This also helps distinguish it from some of the more skeletal pop tracks that are in the modern pop sphere at the moment. Waves is another really fun track, feeling a bit more modern pop R&B this time. I'm loving the vocal samples on this one and the more dark and sultry tone to this track overall. The vocals still have some bounce though, and the chorus manages to combine all of these elements in a pretty engaging way. The sort of reverse effect that's on the beat here really adds to the tumultuous nature of the song, and I'm also really digging how it managed to be catchy while also not being very energetic. The boys have always had great choruses, and I feel like this song especially showcases their skill for that, and also how they can apply their skill of the chorus in a few different ways. I Just Want to Party All the Time is definitely taking the sound in the complete opposite direction from the previous track, and while it is very superficial, it's just a lot of fun. Having a bit of a pop-punk inspired instrumental, emphasis on the pop, it manages to culminate in an utterly blissful chorus here. It also has great flows and vocals and very serene instrumentals at times, especially in that light guitar and in the beat itself. The rising vocal inflections in the "it's cool whatever, do you ever" line, they really just make that chorus hit even harder. They also have an 80s inspired sax solo at the end, like it's pure cheese, but they own it, and because they own it, it's pretty fucking good. Some of the latter parts of the project have some slow songs that I don't really care for, but I think Weekends was an example of that done right. The funk-inspired bass adds a fuller sound to what is otherwise a pretty simple beat, and again, that chorus is just a pop R&B driven force. The verses don't hit as hard, but they do provide some nice build-up to the chorus. It's a simple track that maybe doesn't stand out as much as the previous songs, but I think it's still pretty effective at what it's trying to do. Work For It has a more hip-hop inspired beat, and the flows on this track have a more sultry vibe to them that really culminates in the chorus here. This is especially prevalent when those samples really accentuate the vocal harmonies. The seductive cadence on the vocals also really fit this beat, I feel, and I'm also really digging the sort of call and response vocals on this one. Having these call and response vocals alongside some pretty great harmonies really make the vocals and beat just meld together really nicely. Forget You Now is definitely the best song on the project, I think. The vocal sample is very theatric and grand, and again, the vocals are a big highlight on this one. Add that to some suave flows, punchy bass, and a great chorus, and this one's a winner. I'm really loving how velvety the vocals sound on the second verse, and I feel like they're just really flexing their vocal skills on this one while also making it a complete package in terms of instrumentals too. This song, I think, is just a great example of what modern pop can do, making something very catchy yet also layered at the same time. Brand New is actually another nice song that slows it down a bit. The strings are definitely a nice touch that helps it stand out, and the simple drum kit and guitar combo really make this feel a bit more intimate and warm compared to the other songs on the project. Again, I cannot praise the boys' chorus skills enough, feeling like a very natural extension of the verses, not anything too bombastic or grand. It also doesn't feel too simple, and I'm also really liking how the flows are melding with the light guitar and the strings. It's just a very well-rounded track, and it's actually a ballad that holds my interest, which is a pretty big praise. Unfortunately, the last 3 songs on the project kind of flounder a bit. They're all pretty much ballads, which don't really hit me that much to begin with, yet they're also very samey as well, feeling very underwhelming compared to the sounds that we've explored previously. Ask You Tonight especially is just kind of your corny millennial core acoustic guitar ballad that just does nothing for me. The vocals are fine, I guess, but man, this song really feels like every sort of pseudo indie pop song from the 2010s. It just does nothing for me, and it sounds kind of stagnant, especially that sort of pseudo bombastic chorus that they got going on here with like the whole millennial whoops and all that. It's just eh. Superstitious largely continues the tone of Ask You Tonight, however, I think the electric guitar on this track makes for a bit more of an interesting and complex listen compared to the previous song. It adds some texture to the track, and even though I still think the beat is pretty plain, it does add some intricacy to the song that the previous one lacked. The chorus is fairly catchy, even if it's nothing special, and I do like how the guitar kind of subtly weaves itself throughout the entire track's runtime. The 80s styled bass is also pretty decent, however, I just think the song kind of comes and goes without really making much of an impact. The title track, Another Life, ends the project, and unfortunately, it's also not really doing anything engaging or interesting. It follows the vibe of the previous 2 songs, however, it's a bit more sparse and ethereal, featuring these billowing instrumentals and vocals. I will say that the lyrics do show some maturity since their BTR days, with them kind of looking at the past and how they basically try to just put themselves out there and just go for their dreams, even through the fear of failure. However, I wish the instrumental really complemented this more. It's not a bad track, I guess, but it just doesn't really hit that hard, and it feels pretty underwhelming compared to the pretty great first 7 songs. Either way though, like I said, this album is better than it has any right to be. A comeback album after a decade from a former Nickelodeon boy band, like that's a recipe for failure. However, maybe it's nostalgia, but I've always felt that the Big Time Rush boys were a bit different from their contemporaries. It always felt like they had these skills to be more than just Nickelodeon core, even though I still have the nostalgia for their older stuff. All the songs tend to be about love and relationships and stuff like that, however, they don't really feel outdated or anything on here. I think the boys' willingness to grow with their fans and not feeling the need to try and recapture what their early catalog did, it really helped them out here. I don't know if people who didn't grow up with the show would be able to appreciate this record as much as I did, or other people who grew up with the show, and maybe it's not really pushing pop forward in any, like, crazy ways, but I think this album has a lot of cool and solid pop tunes on it. Overall, I'm feeling a light 7 on Big Time Rush's Another Life. Of course, we do have to talk about album covers on this show, and, the album cover on this one, it's okay, I guess. It's just not really doing much for me. Just feels very much like what you would expect from a boy band coming back, or like, a boy band in the modern era, I suppose, at least in the West. Like, the color combinations are pretty nice, their faces are not doing anything, terribly heinous or anything like that, but it's just kind of standard. Of course, those are just my thoughts on this newest album by Big Time Rush. What did you guys think? Do you also have nostalgia for the show, and you think this album is actually pretty good? Or is this one just not really hitting for you, as it's just kind of your standard pop fare? Let me know. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell if you too are in another life, and until the next one, farewell.